So there's now 11 warships and 15,000 U.S. soldiers in the Caribbean. And of course, they've been threatening Maduro. In fact, the Venezuelan government says they already foiled some sort of attempted false flag attack. It's a real nightmare. 83 people have been killed. Over 20 boats have been bombed by Trump. Just this relentless pressure with these illegal murder and terror attacks that are happening. Lord only knows what the end game is going to be here, what the end result is. Now, Trump came out and said the following. To all airlines, pilots, drug dealers, and human traffickers, please consider the airspace above and surrounding Venezuela to be closed in its entirety. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So, now understand something. He has no authority whatsoever to do this, but he said this, and then of course now everybody goes, oh, fuck, are they going to attack any minute? And so now the airspace over Venezuela is closed. There's no planes flying over the airspace of Venezuela. Understand something. This is a campaign of terror. The president is engaged in terrorism. He's engaged in murder, and he's engaged in terrorism. And now we're at the point, it's gotten so absurd, it's gotten so ridiculous, it's so over the top that even some Democratic senators are being forced to admit the truth of the situation. Now, Chris Van Hollen has been really impressing me lately. Chris Van Hollen has been a bit of a superstar on the Democratic side. He's one of the reasons why Kilmar Abrego Garcia wound up being freed. He went to El Salvador and visited Kilmar and, put that front and center. Let Bukele know, hey, we're watching you, bitch. And if Democrats get power again in the U.S., your ass might be in fucking prison. So there was pressure put on Bukele. He also had an American Palestinian kid, 16 years old, being illegally held as a prisoner, as a hostage by Israel. He helped get him released. So he's been putting W after W on the board. I also think he's interested in running for president, by the way, I should point out. Well, here he is on ABC this week, and listen to what he says here. This is a big fucking deal. This is a big deal. Ready?
Let me ask you about that Washington Post report on the attack on that Venezuelan alleged drug boat. What do you make of what happened there? Do you think there was a war crime committed?
Oh, I think it's very possible there was a war crime committed. Of course, for it to be a war crime, you have to accept the Trump administration's whole construct here.
That we're at war.
Which is we're in armed conflict at war with the drug gangs. Of course, they've never presented the public with the information they've got here. But it could be worse than that, right? If that theory is wrong, then it's plain murder.
The first strike is murder in that case.
That's correct.
You're alleging.
That's correct. Well, I'm saying that it's either murder from the first strike if their whole theory is wrong, and I think the weight of the legal opinion here is that they've concocted this ridiculous legal theory. But even if you accept their legal theory, that it is a war crime, and so I do believe that the Secretary of Defense should be held accountable for giving those kind of orders.
Here you have a Democratic senator accusing Donald Trump of committing murder, and he is 1,000,000% factually correct. Listen to what he said there. It's actually really important, the distinction that he made. He said, look, it's not even a war crime because in order for it to be a war crime, you have to officially be at war. There's been no declaration of war through Congress, which is legally what has to be done in order for these actions to happen, right? And so then if it's not a war crime, you're literally just committing murder. You're committing murder openly and repeatedly. 83 separate instances of murder. That number's probably climbing on a regular fucking basis. Over 20 different instances of bombing these ships. I'll go a step further. Not only is he correct, he's more correct than he even knows because there's another term we could use to describe this. Terrorism. The President of the United States and the Secretary of War Crimes, Pete Hegseth, they are committing terrorism on a regular basis. Finally, you got some Democrats who are telling the truth. Finally, you got some Democrats who are telling the truth. I've been pulling my hair out going, why the fuck are none of you people talking about Venezuela? And look, there was reporting that in the House of Representatives in particular, you had Democratic leadership, probably Hakeem Jeffries, he's the leader, going, don't fucking talk about the Venezuela thing. Why? Because he low-key secretly wants Maduro to be ousted too. He's low-key secretly bought by some of the same donors that Trump is bought by. That's why we call Hakeem Diet MAGA. That's why we call him AIPAC Shakur, which we've got from, I believe it was Charlemagne the God who initially came up with that. Because he's beholden to the donors. He believes in nothing, right? Well, here's a Democrat who actually believes in something and who's saying the exact right things, saying the factually correct things. So this is a big deal, man. Everybody should be talking about this. You have a Democratic senator correctly accusing the President of the United States of murder. The criminal charges have to come. They have to come. He needs to be impeached, or they need to invoke the 25th Amendment, and you have to have criminal charges. By the way, let me also show you this. So here we have Tim Kaine, and he's going to talk about this from the perspective of, from a legal angle. He's going to tell everybody what's going on from a legal angle here, and that now you have, this is shocking even to me, many Republicans who are going, I don't know about that, bro. In fact, Republicans are open to investigations over the terror attacks and the murder of the fishermen. So they're open to that. Okay, ready? Here we go. Listen to what Tim Kaine says here.
I want to start out by asking you about the situation in Venezuela, because there are now serious signs that military action, including potentially ground action, could be imminent. You have tried twice to pass war powers resolutions that would force President Trump to get approval from Congress first before any military action. Twice you have failed. Do you think the numbers on this will change if there is ground action, and will it even matter at that point?
I do believe the numbers will change. You're right. I along with others, filed a resolution, no war in Venezuela or against Venezuela without congressional approval. It failed, but that was before all of these assets have amassed around Venezuela and before President Trump said that the airspace needs to be closed. I will move with colleagues Senator Schumer, Senator Paul, Senator Schiff immediately should there be military action.
So, as Just Foreign Policy points out, new from Senator Tim Kaine and Rand Paul, war powers vote, quote, will move immediately should there be military actions. What they're talking about here is attacks inside Venezuela proper. That's what they're referring to. So like what appears to be any actual regime change effort where they attack inside of Venezuela, Senate GOP voted against the Venezuela war powers resolution only after Rubio promised Trump did not plan to launch an attack. Trump will lose the vote if he starts an illegal war. So that's incredible, what they're saying here. So I remember that vote where basically Congress did not vote to block Trump from war with Venezuela, right? That was the vote that happened previously. But the part I didn't know is that Marco Rubio had to promise them behind the scenes Trump is not actually going to attack Venezuela, right? And so what they're saying here is if Trump does do that, then even some Republican senators will break and vote with Democrats, and they'll effectively will block an attempt at a regime change war in Venezuela. That's what Just Foreign Policy is saying. That's what Tim Kaine is saying. That's what the line is now. So, you might be sitting there, watching going, well, hold on, this is weird. We got 11 warships there, 15,000 U.S. troops in the region. They're bombing ships on a regular basis. They're threatening Maduro endlessly. What's going on here? Well, perhaps the reason they haven't pulled the trigger just yet is because they know, well, then it's a fucking giant constitutional crisis because Trump is being told and Rubio's being told, if you do it, we will block it in Congress, and then boom, you actually have grounds to impeach in that scenario for sure. For sure. And the ultimate irony, of course, would be the guy, Trump, who ran in 2015 and 2016, say, I'm against these stupid regime change wars. I'm against other wars. Bush, that was a beauty. The Iraq war was a big fat mistake. All those things. He would become the classic. Now you're George W. Bush reincarnate. You are the neocon imperialist colonizer who is trying to do another regime change war. So this is a big deal. This is a big fucking deal. And it looks like they are actually potentially going to try to fucking hold accountable these psychopaths. And they fucking better, because it's already gone way too far. There were illegal attacks on Iran, on Yemen, on Somalia. There's illegal threats against Greenland and Panama and Mexico. There's threats against Colombia now. There's attacks in the Caribbean of innocent fishermen. This is all totally and utterly out of hand. Trump increased drone strikes over 400%. The guy is utterly unhinged. He needs to be reined in, and he needs to be reined in ASAP. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.